Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the next session in our webinar series, How HR Professionals Can Equip Their Sales Teams for Success. I'm going to quickly start by introducing our guest today. I have Asad Zaman here with us. He's a partner at Sales Talent Agency and the Managing Director of the Executive Search, Technical Sales, and Professional Services Division. Asad, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. Now, Asad, I used to read out like the full bio and whatnot, and we found it was really impersonal and very dry. So I want to change it up. And I'd like you to tell everyone today, one thing about you, one thing you like to do outside of work that has nothing related to work.
Ooh, interesting question. I always love questions like this. I think for me, one of the things I really enjoy is stand-up comedy. I don't have the guts to do it as yet, but I spend a lot of time listening to and attending stand-up shows. I think it has so much to do with business, right? Like a lot of times sales leaders and business leaders and executives, investors, they're pitching, they're talking to audiences, and you can learn a lot from people that have made their livelihood out of controlling a room of a couple of hundred people by telling good jokes. I think if you can figure that out, you can do a lot more. So I spend a lot of my time on stand-up comedy.
That's awesome. No, thanks for sharing. Really appreciate it. All right. So we're gonna move on here. I want to talk a bit about why we chose this topic today, and it's an important topic to me. And there's a few reasons. So one thing, it's really important for people not to forget that within organizations, sales is driving that growth. And I think we sometimes just lose track of that. And of course, it's not just driving the growth of organizations, it's really driving the growth of economies. And I've been in the employee engagement space for several years now. And of course, all these drivers of engagement, driving people to be successful in their roles. But in the end, sales is driving organizations to succeed. And like I mentioned, I've been in the space for a bit, and it's really, sales is one group that differs significantly from the rest of organization's employee population as it relates to the employee experience. They are unique in so many factors, like how they're compensated. They have variable compensation, whereas everyone else probably has straight salary or whatnot, or hourly wages. Job security. Most people can have maybe a quarter or two where maybe they don't have their best quarter, but in sales, it's not really an option. People can lose their jobs for that, right? And then work-life balance. I mean, when you're in sales, there's no 9 to 5. You're working, second you wake up to the time you go to bed. And it's because that's when your customers are working, especially if you're working through time zones and whatnot. So we always have to be kind of aware and on top of things. There are opportunities for collaboration. I mean, especially when you talk about people that are like on the road, someone that's selling linens to retail. Like these are people that, not really getting the same opportunity to collaborate and communicate with the team, which of course are drivers of engagement. There's also the negativity they can face in terms of rejection from prospects, and some cases on a daily basis. And then this one's really kind of interesting to me, the competing interests salespeople have and sales managers have. They're trying to do what's best for the customer, but they're also trying to do what's best for the company. And so it's a really difficult role to navigate. And the last point I have here is that I've actually, in fact, have had people approach me saying that we should create some type of offering on how to improve employee engagement in sales teams specifically. And it really shouldn't be surprising to anyone that this is the case, because Asad had shared with me some stats to highlight this gap between sales and the rest of the employee population. And I want to show you some, and he's actually going to be going over some of these again with you guys, but I think it's really important just to quickly highlight here. Sales turnover rates within sales, turnover rates are like twice the rate of the rest of the overall labor force, so 27%. And the average tenure of a sales rep is about 1.5 years. Of course, also you have here the average tenure of a sales leader is about 19 months. And this one really kind of emphasizes the pressure that can be on. 4 to 5 sales leaders don't feel that they're on track to hit the 2019 targets. And let's think about these numbers for a second, especially in the realm of employee engagement. Depending on the study out there, there's a bunch of studies that talk about how much it costs to replace an employee. But I've seen studies that show anywhere from 50% of that employee's salary to 200% of that employee salary. And of course, you have to consider what's going into play there. You know, the recruiting costs, the onboarding, the training, and I mean, the list goes on, right? So these are extremely costly figures for organizations. So it's really key that we address them. So that's essentially why we wanted to talk about this today. Now, I only have one more slide here before I pass it on. I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time. But you know, we at WorkTango, we put on these webinar sessions because we want to help, you know, inform, inspire, and educate our community. So of course, we want you to get the most out of the session. Like I said before, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Q&A section, and as well as the chat, if you have any comments or whatnot. And I'm going to address them, and I'm just going to you know, jump in and interrupt Asad if a good question comes in. Yeah, we want to make this collaborative. So please don't be shy. So, you know, with that said, I really want to test this out. If you have any learning objectives for today's session, let us know in the Q&A, okay? And alternatively, if you just want to say hi or talk about how excited you are to be here with us today, let us know. Tell us in the chat section. I'm gonna open it up here and watch. All right, I'll give you guys, let me see here. There's the chat and the Q&A. Here we go, got our first Q&A. Coaching, Ashley says she's interested in coaching opportunities. And I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but Babika says she's excited to hear you speak, Asad. I'm excited too.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, well, that's a good start. I really appreciate it, guys. And like Asad, if we can address coaching opportunities for Ashley, we'd really appreciate it. And I'm going to pass it on to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I just want to make sure I have control over here of the screens. Have you passed over control to me?
Yep, you should be good. Second click usually does it. There you go.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us. My name's Asad, and I'm quite excited to be your lunchtime entertainment today. Our focus today is going to be on discussing two things. Number one is how can HR and business leaders go and find the right sales managers? And then once they have the right sales managers on board, how can they equip them to build great sales teams and hold on to them? So that's a broad subject. Now, the guys at WorkTango told us that a lot of you were asking questions around these areas. So what we did was we took everything we already know and then went and had some conversations with thought leaders in this space who are the best of the best and understand this topic in its depth. We read everything and anything that was available on it and took all of that and amalgamated it into an easy to discuss and easy to implement framework. We don't like overcomplicating things because I don't want anyone to come away from this feeling like this very difficult challenge is one that you can't overcome. It is a hard problem, but you can overcome it. To help you figure it out, the agenda for today is going to be as follows. We're going to first talk about a little bit about what's going on in the market. Why is it hard to hire good sales managers? And why is it so hard for good sales managers to build and hold on to a great sales team? The second thing is going to be about how to find and attract the right sales manager. From there, we're going to jump into how you can help your sales manager make good choices when they're hiring by using a framework that we use to interview candidates called DNA PRO. And finally, we're going to talk about how you can help them manage turnover, which is a massive problem these days, by helping them identify the different stages employees in their teams go through, where the risk factors are highest, and how to address them. So that's the overall idea of what's going to go on today. If I was on your side, I'd be wondering, who the hell is this guy and why should we care about what he has to say? So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and the company I work with. So my name is Asad Zaman. I'm one of the partners at Sales Talent Agency. We are a Canadian-based consultancy that helps organizations with their go-to-market organizational structure from a recruitment perspective. We've done this now for 11 years, worked with 1,500 companies, and facilitated close to 500 million in salaries. Our focus is helping organizations with three things: executive search, team building for those executives, whether it's an inside sales team, technical sales team, or anything in between, and then providing some advisory services as well on how to find, attract, choose, equip talent. The reason we are a thriving business is because of the market. Right now, most of the major cities are experiencing a lot of growth. Unemployment is low, demand for talent is high, and that means that companies need somebody who can go out and tell their story to candidates, have a good conversation with them, and bring them into the fold. And that's what we do, which is why we're thriving, which is why we're relied on by organizations like Omer's and the DMZ to assist them with this very difficult topic. And through conversations with them, actually, we realized that the supply problem is huge. You can't do anything about the supply of salespeople in the short term, right? You can open visas and do some fancy stuff, but it doesn't have a big difference. All you can do is affect it at the earliest stage. And so we started the Great Canadian Sales Competition because we felt that none of us coming out of university were introduced to sales as a career path or as a skill set. And if you don't do that, how do you get them to go into sales as a career? So we introduced the Great Canadian Sales Competition 5 years ago. It's the largest national student competition in Canada right now and has brought thousands of students into sales as a career. So that's us. Now, let's go into what the hell is going on in this market. So the way that we've looked at it is we try to figure out what the different drivers are, right? What has correlation, what has a causation effect? And we realized that the reason it's hard to build great sales teams, the reason it's hard to hold on to them, and why managers are having such a tough time is because there's high demand and low supply. If you look at the large enterprises, they're growing now more than they've ever grown. Some of them have started hitting that $1 trillion number, which we all used to think was preposterous and would never happen. Now you have multiple companies doing it. When you look at early stage and growth stage investment, every year over the last 5 years has been record breaking. So that's driving demand up. As we discussed a second ago, supply of talent stays pretty flat in the short term. So this gap, as it increases, means that there's more competition for talent. And that means it's harder to hire great people and hold on to them. We wanted to quantify this for you, so we pulled out an example. We looked at how many open software sales jobs are there just in Canada. There are 14,960 open software sales jobs. Then we looked and said, okay, how many people with software sales experience between a year and 10 years exist in the entire market? Forget good or bad, just exist. And we realized there are 5,109 software sales reps that have 1 to 10 years worth of experience. Take out the people that moved in the last year. You know, they took a new job in under 12 months. We want to let them be for a minute. This number drops to under 3,000. So there are almost 5 times as many jobs as there are people that you could even approach for those jobs. That's a problem. This is why turnover rates are high at 27%. This is why sales reps have an average tenure of 16 months and sales leaders have an average tenure of 19 months. When you take ramp up into account, right? An SDR takes about 3 months, an account executive takes 6 to 9 months. How are you going to make your money back when a person is not even sticking around for about 18, 19 months as a rep? It's hard, right? And that's why 4 out of 5 sales leaders do not feel comfortable with the fact that they would be hitting their 2019 revenue targets. 4 out of 5, right? So this is a huge problem for us, and we need to know what to do about it. Why do we need to know what to do about it? The reason this is such an important area to become good at is because in a growing stage company, about 35 to 40% of your workforce sits in marketing and sales. You're HR leaders, you care about company culture. 40% of your company's organization is in these 2 divisions. So having longevity, having good people there doesn't just speak to revenue generation and retention, it also speaks to company culture. And so that's one area that we care about. When we look at the budget spend, it takes 30 to 40% of the overall company budget as well when you're in your growth stage. So not being good at holding on to people, not being good at hiring great people, not knowing how to bring on board great sales managers is a headache for many people in this company, your CEO, you guys, and your investors, in addition to the sales team. So figuring this out is about protecting your investment. And we figured out the recipe for success. There are 3 things we need to figure out here. We need to be strategic about what type of sales manager we hire and what type of people that sales manager hires. We need to be extremely thoughtful about how we ramp them up. A good onboarding process and a good ramp up process is critical. And then we need to know how to keep them engaged as they progress through our organization. The importance of a good sales manager is the first thing I want to touch on. The reason this is such an important topic is that if you have a weak sales manager, you have limited options in terms of the type of people you can hire in the sales team itself. If a sales manager is weak, they generally tilt towards hiring people for their team that have done the same job at one of your competitors. That's like a C- player. A C+ player will look at something that is fairly lateral move as well. Now that means that this is an expensive hire, number one. And number two, there are generally some red flags around people that are willing to leave one job to do the exact same job somewhere else. When you take demand and supply into account, it gives you a very small group of people to actually be able to go after when you're looking to scale out your sales team. A good sales manager flips it on its head. This person can hire all sorts of people. Why? Because they are good teachers, they're good coaches, they know how to lead, they know how to manage, and they know how to inspire. If you can do all 5 things, you have options. Number one option is you can hire some people on the junior side and you can teach them and develop them out. You can go after people at the mid-level in their career and they're inspired to learn from you. They feel that you're the person that can help them bring the best out of themselves. And the last, which is the one that the earlier crappy person could go after as well, are the people that are experienced in the market. They'll come to you because they feel that you will be a partner to them. And you'll take out all the roadblocks that are in their way that hold them back from doing their job as well as possible. That's why having a good sales manager is important, because it gives you, as an organization, options.
Hey, Asad, I have one quick question here.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the last slide there? Now, what do you suggest for organizations that have really high complexity offerings? So, for example, at WorkTango here, we specialize in employee experience and employee engagement. So typically, we need to find people that understand the research background. So it is easier in some ways to go out and get that person that's been doing that same role. So what do you suggest in those type of roles where it take 6 to 9 months getting someone ramped up?
We looked at some data, and it takes any type of salesperson about, if you're a sales development rep, so like lead generators, it takes 2 to 3 months to ramp up, and account executives, it takes about 6 months to ramp up. If you take a person that is not making a lateral move, so they haven't done the exact same thing somewhere else, you need to know how to qualify a person that can still give you a ramp up that is in the same range. How do you do that? You find somebody that has sold into a similar decision maker, but a different type of solution. They've handled complex deal sizes and sales cycles. They've had to grind it out, because if you're an early stage company, you don't have thousands of people returning your calls. So you have to be tenacious and resilient and driven. So you hire people that have that built into them. They're intelligent, resourceful, emotionally intelligent. You qualify the person. And if you're hiring the right type of talent with the right type of relevant experience, you can teach this person. If we hire a doorknob, 100% you can't do anything about it. This person's not going to learn how to do anything. But if you hire a resourceful, intelligent person, they'll figure out how to take all of their knowledge, match it with what you've taught them, and become pretty dangerous in terms of a salesperson quite quickly.
Absolutely. No, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So where are these great sales managers, right? Like we just spoke about, it's important to have them because we need options. Well, we want options. Everyone wants options. No one wants to just hire one type of person. So where do we find the sales manager that has the capability to do that? Well, let's look at what most people are doing right now. Most people today look to hire sales managers from organizations that are very similar to themselves, or they try to promote from within. I love promoting from within. I think it's an absolute amazing way to build people up. The person already understands the company culture, knows your team, has credibility internally. It's a win-win-win. If you have that right person ready for that next challenge internally, you don't always. If you don't always have the person ready for that next challenge, then just looking at people that are working for your competitors or in and around your space is not enough. You just don't have enough options there. You need to open up the talent pool here. You need to think about what really matters here. What do we care about when we go to a competitor? We feel that they have very relevant experience, right? Well, how about sales managers who are really good sales leaders, right? They understand those 5 things: teaching, coaching, managing, leading, and inspiring. They've also handled complex deals like maybe you have. but they've just dealt with a separate industry and they now need to learn yours. That is a person that you can bring on board and ramp up very quickly. You can also, if you're looking to, if you have, let's say, a junior team, you can look at people that are sales reps where they are right now. Maybe they've become team leaders or are coaching people or taking part in onboarding, and they've shown that they have capabilities here. That's a person you can look at. And if you have a transactional sales team, which generally early stage and growth stage companies are fairly transactional in what they sell, right? You can hire somebody from a B2C environment. Solar sales is great. Somebody working at a Rogers, TELUS, etc. on the B2C side can bring a very relevant skill set because their job is much harder than the job they're going to do for you. And one of my core beliefs is when you want to hire well, hire people so that whatever role they're taking, it's a step up for them. So wherever they're coming from is the step down. If people take a step up into a new role, there's an excitement and invigoration that they have in them. But in addition to that, the job seems easier. I used to do door-to-door sales. I used to have to knock on 100 doors to sell 10 deals, and I was on 100% commission. If I didn't sell anything, I didn't eat that day, right? Now, after that, when I came and started working in an office and having to make cold calls from an air-conditioned room, not sweating like profusely and just spending all my time in a weird neighborhood, that was so easy for me, whereas people that had never done that, they found that job very difficult. The reason I'm saying you have to open up your talent pool is because you need a lot of people to go after to be in a comfortable position to make a good hire within the time frame you've allocated to yourself and while maintaining cost. We look at sales, recruitment as a sales function. So we look at it as a funnel. When you look at how many people you need to identify, which leads to X amount of conversations, then phone screens, then interviews, and then hire, that formula is something you as an HR professional needs to know. This is what we see when we work on our more complex searches. And what this shows you is that we, as an organization, need to sometimes identify close to 200 people to help our clients make one hire. And that's why you need what we discussed earlier, more options. Once you've identified them, the next thing is knowing what it takes to make them excited about your company. We all think we have the best company in the world, right? Like we will be the most attractive, but it's not as easy as that when there's so much demand in the market that candidates have option after option. You've got to be strategic about first figuring out what they want and showing them that they can get it where if they come to you. We looked at, through many conversations, surveys, and a lot of research, what the hierarchy of needs is, because we felt that the hierarchy of needs of a sales professional of any sort would be similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs for a person. And we've identified 5 major things. The first thing, the foundation, without this, you can't hire even a C player, is a clear value proposition. Now, it sounds really simple, right? I challenge everyone on this webinar. Go and ask 10 leaders within your business what the value proposition is. I guarantee you a lot of them are going to say different things. And that's a problem. You need a clear and compelling value proposition. The next thing is you need to have proof. Your sales manager has to get salespeople to sell what you've got, right? Salespeople can't sell anything unless they have proof. Case studies, reference letters, testimonials. These things are important for sales. If you are a really early stage company, the first client you sell to, you generally might not even charge them anything. All you generally say is that, hey, if you buy this and if it works well for you, give us a video case study or some type of testimonial. Then you identify the hundreds of customers that are exactly like that person and you go and talk to them, right? When you're in the growth stage or an enterprise customer, you have all sorts of reference letters and case studies for different use cases. That is a necessity. Without that, the job of a sales manager and sales professional is very, very difficult, almost impossible. The next thing is they need engaged support. You know, a lot of companies just leave people on their own. The executives leave the sales manager on their own. The sales manager leaves the sales reps on their own. Everybody thinks micromanagement is this terrible word. And at the end, what happens? People are not being developed out. They're not learning. Even the sales manager wants engaged support. They want somebody that they can jam with on strategy. They want somebody that can teach them and help them develop their business acumen and see different angles. so that they can also reach their aspirations of becoming a CRO one day. Realistic targets is also important. A lot of times companies get this part wrong, right? They want to attract somebody over. Let's look at a sales rep. They want to attract an enterprise sales rep from SAP over. And they see, good grief, that person's making 350,000. Oh, okay, let's just make the quota instead of 2 million, 8 million, and they can make 350,000 here too. Well, very quickly that person comes in and realizes it's an unrealistic number. The best enterprise sales reps close 4 deals a year, maybe 5 if they got lucky. So having an unrealistic target is a great way to lose people. No sales manager wants to have their team consistently missing targets because their job just becomes managing depression, and that's a depressing job. So realistic targets. What's a rule of thumb here? If 80% of your team isn't hitting its target, you are either ridiculously bad at hiring, which I don't think would be the case, or you have very, very wrong targets. That's the rule of thumb. And the last thing in the hierarchy of needs is a big picture, a purpose that I connect with, and opportunities for growth.
I really like that realistic targets, Asad.
Yeah.
I once read that stretch goals are culture killers.
Oh yeah, absolutely preposterous. Like if you hit your target, right? How excited are you? You go home dancing. A general salesperson closes 50% of what they work on, right? So if they are closing 50% of what they work on and they hit their target, they've even crossed it and hit the accelerator, made a ton of money for the business. They see themselves on the ranking board and they're doing well there. There's an excitement that they bring into the organization. What people need to remember is sales and marketing is 40% of your entire workforce. Keep them in a good mind frame so that the rest of your company culture doesn't suffer. Otherwise, gloom and doom is going to be what you see every single day when you walk in, and that's depressing. No one wants to see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So we know what the hierarchy of needs is. Now we need to know how to make sure. Now we need to make sure all of our messaging is on point. So the way that you're messaging, whether it is in your LinkedIn outreach, whether it is your job post, whether it's your career page, whether it's a conversation you're having with candidates and your leaders are having conversations with candidates, they need to tell this story. We solve an important problem. This is our purpose as an organization. This is why we exist. This is why we're uniquely able to do it. This is the progress we've made. The growth in our organization is creating career opportunities for the people that come here, not just jobs for people. And we value our people. They feel important. If you are going to market with this employee brand message, you're in a good spot. So how do you identify the best sales managers? We've just talked about why they're important. How do you actually figure out if you've got the right person? Well, there are 2 types of sales managers out there. The first type is somebody who is extremely tactical. This is a person who is probably early on in their career. You know, a sales manager for the first 2-3 years. Really hands-on. They're always on the road with their team or always on calls with the team. They are great coaches. They're always mentoring the team. They have a lot of focus on daily KPIs, activity targets, things like that. Almost a little bit short-sighted though, like they're a little bit short-term focused. The next one is somebody who doesn't like going out and about, isn't, really involved with the team, doesn't like to get their hands dirty, but keeps a really good eye on the long-term strategy, is able to think of this big picture and drive the ship towards that direction. I think there are risks and upsides of either or, right? You want somebody essentially that's an amalgamation of the two, somebody that can do both. That's what a great sales manager is. Each of them could be good, but a great sales manager can be tactical when required and strategic when needed. When you are going to get them, trying to acquire these sales managers, you need to have a comprehensive talent acquisition strategy. We just discussed earlier on, I showed you our funnel of 200 leads to 1, right? So we need to know where to find these 200. So there are a couple of places you can look, right? There's your network. There are people that are active job seekers, and there are people that have the skill sets you need. The first line of attack, the number one thing you do is look for the people that are open to new opportunities, are within your network, and have the skill set you're looking for. Talk to people, talk to your employees. Talk to all the leaders in the organization. Who do you know? Who can we connect with? Try and talk to investors and advisors and really find the people within your network that can do this job. This is not a huge talent pool, but it's one that you 100% have to tap into each and every time. The next one is what I like to call the luck-based strategy. This is the group of people that can do your job and are active job seekers. Now, the thing to keep in mind is we earlier spoke about the fact that there's high demand and low supply. In a market like that, great people are not generally going out and applying for jobs. Jobs come to them. And so you can't rely on this group because it's a very small group and it's about getting lucky. You post your job and the right person is available at the right time for some odd reason and they connect. You have to do this each and every time, but you cannot rely on this group. And the next group of people are people that have the skill set that you need. They're great sales leaders somewhere. They've led a team of the sort that you want them to lead in your organization. But they don't know you. They have no idea who you are. They're not applying to you. They don't know anyone in your network. They have no idea you exist. Or maybe they've seen your name floating around. They don't care right now. Somebody needs to make them care. It can be your leaders. It can be you guys. You can outsource this. But somebody needs to identify those people, go to them and tell them a really good story about your business, have an intelligent conversation about why there's alignment and synergy between their skill set and your company and where you're going, and give them a memorable experience. That is the group that you've got to really be aggressive about, because that's where you make your best hires from. If you rely only on the other two groups, you're going to look around and see a bunch of C and B players. If you make a lot of your hires from this group, you're going to see a lot of A players walking around. We've now discussed why it's important to find a great sales leader, sales manager, how you can find them, what they're looking for. So now let's assume that you've gotten them. Fantastic, good. The next part is they're going to have to start building a team, right? And the trouble is that sales managers, especially those that have 1 to 3 years of experience, they make the most mistakes when hiring. The most common mistake is hiring people that you had the best conversation with, right? Like a candidate came in, you guys shoot the shit, you guys got along, fantastic, let's hire that person. Well, that's a terrible way to go about hiring. And so what you need to give them is a framework that they can use when they're interviewing candidates that can allow them to measure risk and upside. We developed this framework many years ago for ourselves, and we now train a bunch of companies on using it internally. It's called DNA PRO. And through DNA PRO, what we've been able to figure out is alignment and synergy between a candidate, a job, and a company by looking at talent and then experience. Talent is broken up into 3 things for us. The first is drive. This is the most critical component that you have to look at first, because if the person is not naturally driven, there's no magic that you can put together to make them driven. People sometimes think that a person can be driven by compensation. Wrong. Compensation directs behavior, but if a person is not naturally driven, then it does nothing for them. A lot of times we want to identify drive, we end up identifying ambition. Who cares? I've met a lot of people that don't end up achieving anything but have tons of ambitions in life. It doesn't matter. What you need to see is this a person that if they set a difficult goal for themselves, they have the work ethic and resiliency to be able to go and achieve it? That is what drive is. How do you test for drive? Well, there are a couple of different ways, but a very simple one is ask them that question. Tell us about a time that you set a very difficult professional or personal goal for yourself. Tell us about the strategy you put together on how you would want to go about achieving it. I want to know about all the roadblocks that you had to navigate. Each time you fell down, tell me about it. And did you get there in the end? What did you learn? They will be prepared for this. They're going to give you a really gangster answer. You're going to be like, wow, impressive. What else? Give me another one. That's where you catch. If everybody has one moment that they show drive, ask them for the second and the third one, and you'll really see whether they were driven or not. That's drive. Now, drive is my engine, right? It's what basically makes me want to jump over, drive through, or dig under a wall to get to my goal. Great. If I just hire somebody with drive, I'm not going to get anywhere though. The next thing that's really important is nature. Nature is critical in leadership as well as in sales professionals. If you hired a sales manager who didn't have emotional intelligence and empathy, how are they going to coach and develop people out? If your sales manager is hiring people that don't have the right nature, how are they going to connect with multiple decision makers when selling a deal? When the average deal in a small mid-market deal has 4 to 5 decision makers, the enterprise has 8 to 9. Those are people from different divisions. Some of them are analytical people, some of them are expressives, others are drivers, some are amiables. Your individual needs to have empathy, because then they can put themselves in the shoes of those decision makers, connect with them, build rapport with them, create urgency, and do all the things required to take this deal from here to here, which is the finish line. How do you test for nature? Well, there are a few ways to do this. I think my favorite one for sales managers is to see whether or not somebody is coachable. How do you do that? Well, the first one is try coaching them. Easy, right? Do a scenario, role play. Ask them to try to sell you something, like set a scenario up and then ask them to role play it with you. Great. Once it ends, give them some positive reinforcement, positive feedback, and then try to coach them. Give them 3 or 4 tips and then role play again. 2 things you're trying to look for. Did they resist the coaching? In which case they don't have the right nature, they aren't emotionally intelligent, they're not coachable, and you don't want them. And were they able to implement some of that coaching when you did it the second time around? That's one way. The second way is ask them about a time where they made a disastrous professional mistake. A lot of times, people that are emotionally intelligent understand that you learn when you lose. And so they'll tell you very, very forthcomingly that this was a time where I screwed up. This is the mistake I made. This is what I learned and I never made it again. And that's a really good example. Somebody who tries to tell you about a situation where somebody else made the mistake and they came in and saved the day, which happens more often than not, you know this person is not emotionally intelligent. And the last thing is to have them speak to somebody else in the interview process. If I'm an expressive and the other person is an expressive, we're generally going to connect, right? So have them sit down with somebody who's more of an analytical person and then see, did you feel the same way I did about this person's ability to adjust to the role and be a good member of our team and sell to our client base? That's how you test for nature. We are selling innovation. We are selling into markets that require strategy. We are selling technical things, services, all sorts of complicated solutions. And so the right level of business acumen is required here. Why? Well, back in the day, you could get people to buy from you because they liked you, right? And right now, it's important for people to like you. But what's more important is for them to think that you are the expert. In today's day and age, a person, when they're buying, they don't want a salesperson and a buyer and seller relationship. They want a doctor-patient relationship. They want you to be the expert and to guide them on the best way to solve their problem. And so you can't develop an expertise unless you've got curiosity and you're intelligent. And so you can't have experts out there in the field. Your sales manager cannot have experts out there in the field unless and until they are hiring people that have the right level of acumen. This is talent. Now, when you're hiring junior people, this is the only thing that matters. You don't even look at the rest. This is it. When you're hiring senior people, it matters what they've done with it. And that's the second part. There we go. Okay, that's PRO. So, so the first thing is performance, right? This is very easy to ask, hard to find people that have great performance. Now, performance has to do with how they were measured in every role they've been in the past and how they performed, and ask them that question. Now, remember, people lie. Apparently, no one's ever missed targets based on a lot of the interviews we conduct till we start really digging in. So know how to dig in. Know how to ask questions in 70% of try to track back, reverse engineer from then, see if they can walk you through the number of deals they closed with the right deal size and things of that nature. Start pulling on these threads and you'll start seeing things unravel. Put a little bit of pressure on them. If a person was that good, they generally remember their numbers and they remember how they got there. If somebody is telling you, oh, I don't remember 5 years ago what I achieved, probably didn't achieve much. Another thing is, ask about how they got somewhere, not just where they got. I once interviewed somebody that had hit their targets 4 years, but there was 1 year in between. There was a 5-year track record, out of which 1 year the person had missed was at about 72% a target. I said, interesting, what happened there? You were killing it elsewhere. And he explained this, what had happened. He was given a territory that had performed, that was declining at about 35% year over year for 5 years in a row. The salesperson in it was a disaster. And the market in that particular territory hated this company. This person came around and took it from a declining market to one that was performing well. So 70% a target was more impressive than the time that the person had hit 120% a target because of the challenge at hand. Also, who cares if you hit 101% a target? It also matters where you are in the rankings. So ask people, how big was the team and where did you rank? Oh, you were 101%, but you were last, so you were a disaster. So that's an important thing to figure out as well. The next thing is relevant experience. Now, we've discussed this a little bit earlier as well. Relevant experience has to do with ramp up, right? So understand what relevant experience is necessary and what is nice to have. I think having done the same thing for the same decision maker is a nice to have. I think what is necessary is selling a complex solution into a similar decision maker, handling deal sizes and sales cycles of a similar nature, and you can teach the rest. And opportunity management, this one is critical, guys. So we spoke about demand and supply a lot today, right? So think about it like this. There's a lot of distraction in the market. People are going to be knocking on the doors of your sales reps 4 to 5 times a month. That means you need to understand how they make decisions on their career for you to understand what risk and upside you're getting. If a person is easily distracted, you shouldn't hire them even if they're good on all other factors. Now, the last bit of advice on this methodology is put a weighted scorecard together and have multiple people interview using the same methodology. That way, you can actually have a standardized method and you're not making hires based on guesses or who you had good conversations with or who you felt was good. You might think this is fine. I've gone into enterprise companies and asked rooms full of VPs, what do they look for? And they gave me 5 whiteboards worth of words. I like the energy. I like the look in the eye. I like a person who's driven. I like sports people, all sorts of different things. They need one coherent, cohesive framework. That's what this is. So this is going to be the last part of what we're going to discuss, which is your sales manager has now made a good hire. Hopefully. If they've made a good hire, they need to now know how to make sure that they don't risk losing this person. Sales managers have to be aware of the stages a sales rep goes through once they join a new organization. We've put this together and it has to do with confidence and time. Time can also be thought of as skill set, right? Because what happens is you spend more time doing a job. You get repetitions and you learn the skill set required. So when they first come in, they have high confidence, but their skill set in your particular job is low. They haven't gone through the onboarding. They haven't ramped up as yet. So skill set is low. They feel that they want to come in and knock it out of the park day one. Stage 2 is when they realize that's not the case. It's harder than I thought. Confidence dips, skill set starts coming up. The third stage is towards like the 9 months to a year and a bit, depending on your sales cycle, this person's confidence has come up and skill set has come up. They're now post ramp up, post probation. They've had some wins. They've been able to win enough that they're feeling good. They're just not sure if a lot of that was luck or if it was them. They might have hit their target the previous quarter, but the one deal that got them over, they thought it was like a flip of the coin and it just flipped their way, right? So they're just not theirs yet. The last stage is high confidence and high skill set. They've done this enough. They've had enough repetitions. They've won consistently. They feel great. The high risk stages are stage 2 and stage 4. This is where you risk losing people. Why? Stage 2, I'm scared. Holy shit, I screwed up. I haven't knocked it out of the park immediately. They won't fire me. I should look at other options. I should have some contingency plan. You're sweating. Stage 4, I'm bored. Like 5 quarters in a row. So you need to know that these are the stages where you risk losing people. And now we're going to talk about how to manage them, lead them, so that you are managing risk. Stage 1, this is the fun stage. They've come here and you're not going to risk losing them, right? Confidence is high, skill set is low, risk of turnover is low. Why is it low? Well, unless and until you made a horrible decision or you overpromised and underdelivered, they're going to stick it out during the probation period. They're going to stick out the onboarding. They think they've got this. What you need to give them is micromanagement. Scary word. Everybody got sketched out for a second. So micromanagement is teaching. It's creating a foundation. But when you hire somebody and say, I don't micromanage, what does that mean? Like, why not? When a person's coming in, they don't know what to do. If you're not guiding them, then you're not a good leader. So a good leader will micromanage a person during this phase, will show them how things are done in a way that leads to the most probable chance of getting the outcome you want. You measure them on activities and you give them zero creative freedom. You don't get creative till you get good. The next stage is...
Sorry, Asad, I'm sorry, I want to jump in really quickly there. So back to stage one, we got a couple of really good comments there, and like Jeff and Ryan really liked your points about how it's necessary to have that micromanagement piece in stage one. But our good friend Amanda, Amanda from AdLib there, she was hoping on, really getting an idea of like what is key for success within that first stage. She was asking about 30, 60, 90, and what the most, and she emphasized most, important thing to focus on, but not only for hiring managers, but also for the HR teams. Do you have any tidbits on that?
Really good question. So I think there has to be a very well-structured onboarding process, which kind of takes this entire 3-month time frame. It has to be in partnership between HR and the sales manager. And the most important part of it is focusing on why your organization exists. The most common mistakes are that people hire new reps and immediately go into product training and sales training. But I need to connect with the purpose first. I need to connect with why this organization exists, who our customers are and why they buy from us, the success stories they've had. That makes me excited. That makes me connect with the company. That is step one in the onboarding process, is to focus on the why. Generally getting a business leader to come and give a talk during that onboarding process and having a lot of focus on the buyer and success stories. Number two is, you've gone from the why to the buyer. You've shown them the buyer's journey, along which your sales process now maps up, obviously. So that's step two. Then you go into the sales training, different classes, right? Now, the second mistake that companies make is they use this method of onboarding called the ride-along strategy. They've got somebody who's the #1 sales rep and they hire a person. They say, you're going to shadow this person for the next 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 3 months. Guess what? If it takes 10 different things to be good at sales, right? For me to close a deal, I need to do 10 things. Great salespeople are generally really good. Superstars at 2, 3 of them and just okay at the rest. You end up putting a person next to someone who's not killing every aspect of their job. So that creates a lot of bad behavior. It also confuses them because they start seeing those mistakes. Never do that. But in the sales training, have a person who's really good at, let's say, negotiating, come in and run a class on negotiating. Have somebody who's really good at webinars or proposals or storytelling, come in and train on those specific topics. That is the next step. Now you go to the competitive landscape. You show them who your competitors are, what your competitive advantage is, and what their competitive advantage is as well. From there, you do a lot of role playing, and you obviously get trained on your systems and processes at that point. And then it's repetition, repetition, repetition. The thing I love that certain companies are doing is they're adding exams at the end of the 3 months, a qualitative and quantitative exam. You have now been trained in a very methodical, systematic, well thought out manner. You should know our product, our clients, how to do this, how to sell it, how to tell the story, have the conversation, do a demo, etc. So you do an exam at the end of that 3 months. If you fail, you do it once more. If you fail again, we're not going to put you in front of our clients, out you go. That's, I think, a really good way to take a person through that first stage.
Absolutely. No, I love that. Actually, I've heard of organizations going as far as actually having, because you talked about starting with why, to quote Simon Sinek, I guess, but actually having people, sales reps, so actually anyone within the organization actually take part in customer-facing role during that onboarding time, because they really understand that customer experience, they understand the customer successes, and they understand why they are delivering their offering in the first place.
100%. A lot of companies also are trying to train empathy into the company early stages, right? Because When you're at an early stage as a business, and by early, I mean anywhere from like 20 people to 150 people, you need there to be a really good company culture, one where great ideas are encouraged, the communication framework allows for great ideas to rise to the top, and logic wins all discussions. And for that, you need empathy amongst different divisions. And so a rotation program during the first few months where marketing does sales and sales does marketing so that they actually get along for once. These type of rotation programs are really important and create empathy. And that leads to further collaboration, which in turn leads to good ideas and innovation coming out of your company.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay, so we've done this well. Let's go into stage 2 then, right? So what's going on in stage 2? Stage 2 is low confidence, skill sets building up, risk of turnover is high. Why? Because we discussed the person sweating. Over here, your number one job is to inspire someone and to empathize with them as a sales manager. How do you empathize with them? Well, you know that they're actually on the right track, right? Based on their activities. You know, actually, this person might be really, really good. They don't know it. Show them examples of other people that were at their stage where they're at right now, feeling what they're feeling, but right now are killing it. Have them talk to that person. That is empathy in this particular instance. Inspiration, management, micromanagement still, but they start getting a little bit of creative freedom, a little bit, 2 out of 10. You need to see whether or not they have the right effort and if they're improving. Those are 2 really important things to measure here. If they're not putting in the effort and they're not improving, you should be scared. If they look like they've lost the will to live, you should be scared. Step 3. Okay, this is the fun stage. This is one where they've figured this out a little bit. You know this person's going to be really good. Their confidence is high. The skill sets come up as well. The risk of turnovers is there, but it's not astronomical. They're going to have commission checks coming through. They see some growth opportunities. They're going to stick it out right now. Your job over here is to mentor and coach them, to really take them to that next level where the confidence comes back up. Because when the confidence is up and you're selling, you don't sound like you're selling. You don't sound like you need the deal. Sometimes when a person's confidence is down, it's because they need the deal a lot. They're about to lose. They lost last quarter. They're about to lose this quarter. So they start getting desperate. No client wants to buy an expensive solution from somebody who sounds desperate, who needs that check. You know, people that discount at the end of the quarter to close the deal, generally not the best client experience either, right? So you need to make sure that the person's confidence is brought up, and you do that by mentoring and coaching them. Results is now what matters. We are a meritocracy when it comes to sales and marketing. By now, results need to be shown. Your targets need to be achievable and reasonable. You need to equip them, but if those 2 things are there, at this stage, you need to start seeing some results. Now they get all sorts of freedom. Now you tell them, hey, micromanagement, off it goes. Now my job is to almost be a partner to you. And I'm going to allow you to customize your approach a little bit so that you can have fun with this. And the last stage is where they've started getting bored. They've done this for a long time. Their confidence is high, skill set is high, but they are bored. And what happens when you're bored? It means you need a new challenge. Your job is to do 2 things. Number 1 is to come up with a new challenge for them. Is that transitioning to a different type of role, selling to a different size of customer, taking on management responsibilities. And if you can't do that, your second job is making sure you have some bench strength, because you will lose this person. This person will not stick around. This is the time where they're going to get the most ROI for their brand in the market. If you can't give them any type of next step, they're going to go find it. You can support them, empower them, and enable them to grow. That's what you need to do here. So that's it, guys. We really did discuss a lot of different things here. I think you have to keep in mind here that if you want to win, you need the right type of candidate pool. You need to think about what is relevant when you're hiring. You know, it's DNA, it's P and O, and the right amount of R. You need to understand the hierarchy of needs of all sales professionals, whether it's a manager or a rep, and you need to address those needs. You need somebody in a leadership position who can do all 5 things that a sales manager is required to do: coach, teach, manage, inspire, and lead. So you need somebody that can be tactical and strategic at the same time. And you need to understand and teach them what stages their reps are going to go through. so that they know how to protect themselves from the risk of turnover at each of those stages. And turnover can be avoided, as I said, when you know when to expect it. So that's it.
That's awesome, Asad. I really appreciate it. That was a great presentation. Actually, I don't think we've gone through a presentation and seen so little drop off. There's next to no one that dropped off. So obviously people are fascinated. There's one quick question. This might take us a minute over, everyone, so I apologize. Ashley did ask one question about coaching opportunities. Okay. Now, it said this is something she wanted to learn. So do you have any tidbits for Ashley before we move on to the next slides here?
So would this be coaching opportunities, like how to coach people?
I don't know. Ashley, what did you mean by that? Let's see if Ashley can jump in here. There's one thing. She was the first one to comment, so I felt bad that we didn't get to touch on it here. Well, you know what? Well, Ashley does that. If she, oh, here we go. Yeah, so when we see something falling off. Okay, so when we see something falling off, how do you approach coaching an individual?
Really good question. Love it. So there's a really good book, The Talent Code. I think everybody should read it. And what that talks about on the coaching side is the way that masterful coaching is done is that you're actually not focusing on positive encouragement all the time or giving people negative feedback. You're actually making slight adjustments and corrections. The example that they give is if you went to play golf, you took a swing and you had a teacher and the teacher says, okay, that was fine. In the next shot, I want you to breathe in, put your hand left, put your foot to the bat and hold your grip tight, then swing and see what happens. You won't be able to implement all of that. You'll just be confused. What the hell did this person say? But then if another person comes and says, next shot, next 100 shots, you're just going to hold the handle this way. How did that feel? Good? Okay. Now the next 100, I want you to put your weight on the back foot. And these slight adjustments, you're just always giving them slight adjustments. And that's the type of coaching that people are craving. And so daily touch points, consistent touch points in an environment where they feel comfortable coming to you and asking you questions is important for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Asad. I really appreciate that. I really wanted to address Ashley's question there. So, and one question Jenna just asked. Hey, Jenna. Jenna just asked the name of that title. The title of that book again.
The Talent Code.
The Talent Code.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So just a couple of quick slides here before I let everyone go. We have actually, this was originally the next session, but I just got confirmation that I'm going to be doing a session. I think it's August 22nd, same time of the day, with our friends at Snap Clarity on psychological health, which is going to be really neat in the workplace, of course. And then the next session after that is with our good friend, Carolyn. Carolyn works with us here at WorkTango, and she's going to be doing a session on purposeful workplace experience. Carolyn's sessions are awesome and totally inspiring. So I really highly recommend you guys check that out. Actually, also check out her podcast, PWE and Me, because it's a great podcast. One quick note here: if you like this session, you like the content, like we said, we're trying to help inspire and educate our community here. So if you like this, we have lots of great guides and blogs, and of course all of our webinars are recorded and we post them. So check out our resource center. The URL is there, but if you go to the WorkTango website and click on resources, you'll see all the different options. Click on webinars and you can shoot down there. And that is it. Asad, again, thank you so much. It was an awesome session, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Bye.
All right, bye guys.